Kana Hapnapi relatives. Membiwa Tahushka Opemiha. What's good, everybody? I'm going to play some music while we wait for some people to get into the live stream. So hold tight. And Fred, 9455. Peace, brother. Good to see you. We'll begin in a minute, relatives. Just letting some people come into the live stream. Appreciate everyone being here. Hope everyone's doing well. We'll start here momentarily. David Taylor, peace. Appreciate you being there. Laser 71. Appreciate you. Peace. Rodimus Prince, salute relative. Good to see you. Peace. Nasir Clark. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Let some people get on up in here, then we'll get started. Nighthawk, salute relative. Good to see you. Marquise Smith, I appreciate you as well. Thank you for being here. Queen Ottawa, honors as always, says thank you for being here. We got Chief Kokomo up in the building. Peace. Sean Peter Aborigine. What's good, relative? Yashia O'Hare. OCO. Appreciate you. Joey Sylvie. What's good, my brother? Good to see you again. All right. Let some more people file on up in here. Go ahead and get started. Hope everyone is doing well on this Monday. Just kind of wanted to do a live stream, have some fun with it. So I'll turn the music down a little bit. Let me do that real quick so y'all can hear me. All right. So I kind of want to have some fun with this live stream. The topic I kind of wanted to go over, Chikamani Roots Pieces, Crystal Leggett, Grand Rising to you. So I kind of wanted to have some fun with this live stream. So this particular topic, the way they do it is, the way I labeled it was free people of color of North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina. So as you guys know, about a year and a half ago, it's kind of how I got started with all this. I was checking out the video from back in the day, and it kind of amused me because I was, kind of new to doing live streams. I'd done a few, but, we've kind of progressed since then on our information, on the things that we have come across and what we know now. So I kind of wanted to remaster it, and I wanted to have you guys hear why I did that. So yeah, we'll so just kick back, relax. You're gonna hear some surnames and hear some things that you guys probably have found now in your genealogy. So as always, we're going to dodge all hijacks. So we should be accustomed to doing that now. In the title of the information that I'm going to be reading, they're calling us African Americans. So some people still, are under that label, which is okay. Like I said last week, we all come into the information on our own time. So, if you do still think you're African American, the light will turn on, and, you'll see who you really are. So all good. Charlene Alston, Grand Rising to you, sis. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. So again, I appreciate all you guys for showing up as always. I put my email up at the top in case anybody needs to email me about anything. So I guess we go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and pull up the Tony Furlow. Peace. Good to see you. Again, I hope you guys are doing well. Like I said, just sit back, relax, just listen in to some. It's old information for probably a lot of us and myself, but it's good reading. So as you guys, so here it is. It's Free African Americans of North Carolina and Virginia. Like I said, a lot of us have done our ancestries, and we know that a lot of our ancestors aren't from Africa. So again, dodge the hijacks. Take what information you can out of this, that pertains to you, and keep it moving like we always do. All right, y'all, give me just 1 second here. Okay, so this information is by Paul Heinegg, and the Free African American website that I read the family histories from is the information that he's kind of compiled from doing a lot of the research. So, all credit goes to him for doing that. I just want to present the information just in case it helps you with any kind of historical genealogy information that you're trying to look up on your own family. So that's the whole purpose of it. Again, like I said, they're going to say some things in here that we know aren't true. So, just pull out the gems, we'll throw the rest in the trash. All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and, kind of hop nappy Wanagi. Good to see you, my brother. Thank you for being here. Rod Jeweler, Grand Rising to you. So I'll be in and out of the chat. Before we get started, if you guys can hear me pretty good, go ahead and give me a 1. Throw a 1 in there. If you cannot, give me a 2. Trisha, Grand Rising sis, good to see you. All right, cool. I see a 1 in there. Appreciate it. We're out of mess. All right, cool. So here's the information by Paul Heinegg. Again, it says, let's start out. It says here, you can get a taste of Paul Heinegg's research and writing through the introduction he wrote for this book. Even if you are not researching families from these locations and time periods, you will find that the introduction provides you with an interesting look at African American life during the time period. So again, we know about the African American word. Specifically, he shows how social status of many land-owning African American families changed so much over the years that by the 20th century, they had no idea their ancestors had been free. All right. It is lengthy, so you may prefer to print it rather than reading it online. Footnotes for the introduction are included at the bottom of this page. However, to get information about citations shown in square brackets, please refer to the complete book. So, as you guys know, there is actual books written by this gentleman here. I believe Legacy has them. So there's one for Maryland and Delaware, and then you got the ones for North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. So, for anybody who likes to have things in print, book format, I believe those books are available on Amazon. I'm not sure the cost, but I know Legacy actually has the actual books. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's get into it, and we'll, as we go through this, we'll discuss things. So, introduction. These genealogies comprising the colonial history of the majority of free African American families of Virginia and North Carolina. So we're going to include South Carolina in this as well. Even though it doesn't say it, we know that a lot of these family names that we go over were in, all three of those states. And again, we don't want to forget about Maryland and Delaware as well. A lot of history there too. This has revealed a facet of American colonial history previously overlooked by historians. So it goes on to say that most families were descendants of white servant women who had children by slaves or free African Americans. So again, this isn't everybody's family, but we've come to see that, that was happening quite a bit back then. Okay. Families like the Goen. So we're going to talk about a few. Here's 3 surnames that some of you may have now, or you may have found these surnames in your genealogy. So it says families like Goen, Cumbo, and all of these will have different spellings and pronunciations, depending on who was writing it. But Goen, Cumbo, and Driggers, who were free in the mid-17th century, had several hundred members before the end of the colonial period. They were descended from slaves who were freed before the 1723 Virginia law, which required legislative approval for manumissions. So, as we all know, at this particular time, or now, that slavery isn't the way we thought it actually was. So it's a lot different than what we were all told. People were, if you were enslaved or a servant or indentured, you were buying your freedom. You were, free. We were told that chattel slavery and all this slavery was supposed to be for life. And we've come to find out that it's not. All right. Let's see. It says very few families descended from white slave owners who had children by their slaves, perhaps as low as 1% of the total. So another myth that we've heard that, if you were mulatto or whatever, that, the slave master was raping the slaves and having children with them. But it comes to find out that total or percentage is very, very low. So I'm not saying it didn't happen, but the percentage of it happening was a lot lower than what we think. And then we also know that a lot of slave owners were people of color. So that's important too. And that might be why this number is so low. All right. Just checking out the chat real quick, see what you guys are talking about. Wilmore Reed, peace. Rand, peace. Let's see. All right, just making sure I didn't miss anybody. As you come in, relatives, please bang the like button. And, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. All right, so it says many of the free African-American families in Colonial, North Carolina, and Virginia were landowners. Okay, so that's important information too. So, definitely get on the Bureau of Land Management and check and see if your ancestors had land, or go to the counties that they lived in. I know some of you guys definitely have land, because I've seen you guys say it in the chats before that your family still holds on till this day. So, Arthur Gray, what's good, my brother? Good to see you. Okay, so the next part of this says the light-skinned descendants of these families form triracial isolate communities of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Louisiana. And a lot of us have, descent. A lot of us have ancestors, that this category falls under. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. So let's get into Virginia. All right, y'all, let's get it. So most of the free African Americans of Virginia and North Carolina originated in Virginia, where they became free in the 17th and 18th century before chattel slavery and racism fully developed in the United States. So another key sentence here. It says, when they arrived in Virginia, Africans joined a society which was divided between master and white servant, a society with such contempt for white servants that masters were not punished for beating them to death. Okay. It says they joined the same households with white servants, working, eating, sleeping, getting drunk, and running away together. All right. So it's going to say that these people were African slaves. Again, do the research on these people, or if these are your family surnames, only you know where they come from. It's going to tell you. So they're trying to say John Gowen, and you guys can see the other spelling of his name. Okay. It says a Negro servant was free in March of 1641, according to the Virginia Council and General Court records. So 1641. So again, slavery was supposed to be for life. We got people being free back in the 1600s. So I don't know. Anyway, we got Francis Payne of Northampton County paid for his freedom about 1650 by purchasing 3 white servants for his master's use. So we got another person paying for his freedom. So next we got Emmanuel Cumbo. So you guys can see the Cumbo and the Cambo. Now it says he was a Negro and he was granted 50 acres in James City County on April 18, 1667. So again, another Negro getting land. I'm just saying. All right. So next we got John Harris, Negro, was free in 1668 when he purchased 50 acres. So he purchased 50 acres in York County. All right. So that's a few of the, some surnames we got there. We got a John Harris, we got Emmanuel Cumbo, Francis Payne, and John Gowen. So again, some of you guys may have these surnames in your genealogy. So it's important. It says many were free on the Eastern Shore. So they're telling you here that, a lot of these people weren't slaves. They were already free. It says there were at least 40 taxable African Americans in Northampton County in the 1670s who were free or later became free, representing 1/3 of the taxable African Americans in the county. All right, next we're going to get into some two more different surnames. So we got the Nickens and the Weaver families. They came from Lancaster County, where Black Dick or Richard Nickens, his wife Chris, and their children were freed by the 1690 will of John Carter. All right. So again, if that's your genealogy, only know what happened in your family. So, do some digging in on that. Free African Americans were beginning to be assimilated into colonial Virginia society. Many were the result of mixed race marriages. So we got Francis Payne was married to a white woman named Amy by September 1656, when he gave her a mare by deed of jointure. We got Francis Skipper was married to Anne, an African American woman, before February 1667-68, when they sold land in Norfolk County. So they're selling land, buying land, selling land. Doesn't sound like slaves to me. Peter Beckett, a Negro, slave taxable from 1671 to 1677 in Northampton County, Virginia, married Elizabeth Kettle, a white woman servant to John Tilney. So, again, guys, this was happening back then. So, all right. So we got Hester Tate. So I went over this Tate genealogy probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Again, an English woman servant in Westmoreland County, had several children by her husband, James Tate, a Negro slave to Mr. Patrick Spence before 1690. Then we have Elizabeth Kay, a mulatto woman whose father had been free, successfully sued for her freedom in Northumberland County in 1690 and married her white attorney, William Greenstead. All right, so, the interracial marriages were happening. All right, y'all. See what y'all saying in the chat real quick. Peace to everybody. Coach B, peace. Good to see you. Belinda Malone, good to see you. Golden Moon, Grand Rising, good to see you. Appreciate everyone being in here. Again, hit the like button when you come in. Blazer, that's a good question. We'll have to dig into that one. All right, y'all. Let's keep it moving. It says, as the percentage of African Americans increased, so did the tension between free African Americans and slaveholders. In 1666, Bastion Kane, Negro, was punished by the Northampton County Court for harboring, concealing, and trading with Francis Pigot's Negro slave. All right, so that's interesting. And then it says, and as more and more slaves replaced white servants, the legislature passed a series of laws which designated slavery as the appropriate condition for African Americans. Again, Dodge hijacks. As a percentage of African Americans increased, so did tension between free African Americans and slaveholders. In 1670, the Virginia Assembly forbade free African Americans and Indians from owning white servants. And again, this is in Heinegg Statutes at Large. And I told you guys about this book before. Please go check it out. It's pretty lengthy. Not the greatest read ever, but it does have some interesting information in it. Heinegg Statutes at Large. All right. So in 1691, the assembly prohibited the manumission of slaves unless they were transported out of the colony. It also prohibited interracial marriages and ordered the illegitimate mixed-race children of white women bound out for 30 years. All right. In 1705, the Assembly passed a law which all but eliminated the ability of slaves to earn their freedom by ordering that the farm stock of slaves shall be seized and sold by the church wardens of the parish, wherein such horses, cattle, or hogs shall be, and the profit thereof applied to the use of the poor of said parish. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, so we're going to talk about two more surnames. In 1712, all 15 members of the Anderson and Richard families were freed and given 640 acres in Norfolk County, Virginia, by the will of John Fulcher, creating such a stir that the Legislative Council on March 5th, 1712-13, proposed that the Assembly provide a law against such manumission of slaves, which may in time, by their increase in correspondence with the other slaves, may endanger the peace of this colony. So I went over this Anderson family history not too long ago as well, and I read to you guys about this this family being given all this acreage of land. Not sure if any of those families, because I know back then they were still trying to go to court and get this land, but I'm not sure what the outcome may be today. All right. It says, in an effort to prevent their correspondence with other slaves, Fulcher's executor, Lewis Connor, by a deed dated March 20th, 1712-13, swapped their land in Norfolk County with the land of Welshish Creek in Chowan County, North Carolina. All right, again, we read about that. I told you guys about that in that Anderson family history. All right. In 1723, the Assembly prohibited the freeing of slaves except in cases where they had rendered some public service, such as foiling a slave revolt. Also in 1723, the Assembly amended the 1705 taxation law to make female free African Americans over the age of 16 titheable. Now, they also did that to American Indians as well, were included in that. All right. Despite the efforts of the legislature, white servant women continued to bear children by African American fathers through the late 17th century and well into the 18th century. From these genealogies, it appears that they were the primary source of the increase in the free African American population for this period. At least 65 of the families in this history appear to be descendants of white women. Many of these white servant women may have been the common law wives of slaves, since they had several mixed-race children. 36 families appear to be descended from freed slaves. It is likely that the majority of the remaining families were also descendants of white women, since they first appear in court records in the mid-18th century, when slaves could not be freed without legislative approval. And there is no record of legislative approval for their emancipations. All right. So I know in a lot of the family histories that I have read to you guys, a lot of times we don't get the fathers' names. Again, a lot of that information that is compiled is done by court records. And usually you would have the mother being taken to court for one reason or the other. Or people, if you did get a male's first and last name, it's usually because he was going to court as well. But normally there was a lot of the mothers or the women going to court and, different things like that. So, all right, y'all, let me jump back over to the chat real quick, just see how y'all doing. Brave Cold Water, appreciate that. Thank you. Pamela, eyes white and clear. Peace, sis. Good to see you. All right, y'all. Yep. Keep the likes up. Let's get it. All right. So it says the replacement of white servants with African slaves began in earnest in 1660, continued for more than a century. African slaves had not completely replaced white servants by October 17, 1773. It says when the jailer in Prince William County advertised in the Virginia Gazette that he had caught a runaway white servant man. It says committed to Prince William Goal, a certain William Rawlings, who says he is the property of Francis Smith of Chesterfield. The owner is desired to pay charges and take him away. So they're talking about advertisements of white servants running away. It says that he advertised in the same edition that he had jailed a runaway white servant woman. Committed to the goal of Prince William, a servant woman about 26 years of age named Mary Richardson has on a short printed cotton gown and striped Virginia cloth petticoat. All right. So it says racial contempt for African Americans did not fully develop as long as there were white servants in similar circumstances. It was during this period, as late as the end of the 18th century, that free African Americans were accepted in the white community. It goes on to say, likely the newly freed white servants, the first free African Americans, moved to the frontier, which was the south side counties of Virginia, the county of New Kent, and the northeastern part of North Carolina, where land was available to anyone who could pay the taxes and was willing to brave frontier conditions. All right. Now, by 1790, free African Americans were concentrated in these areas, representing about 10% of the free population of the Eastern Shore, 6% of New Kent, 8% of the free population of 12 Southside Virginia counties, and 17% of the free population of York County. It says the total other free population in Southampton County alone exceeded the total other free population in 22 other Virginia counties. All right. It says many originated in or moved to Surrey County, Virginia, where their deeds, marriage bonds, and wills were recorded in the 17th and 18th century. All right, so we're getting ready to read some surnames. A lot of you are going to have ancestry with these surnames. A lot of these surnames are tied to American Indian tribes. If you do the research on it, you will actually see that some of these surnames also will have ties to European ancestry as well. Okay. So we have the Banks, Blizzards, Bird, Charity, Chavis, Cornish, DeBricks, Jeffries, Kersey, Peters, Scott, Sweat, Tan, Valentine, Walden, and Wilson families. Okay. So again, that's some more genealogy for you guys. It's talking about families that were recorded being here. Again, like I said, that's how we get, a lot of this history. With the court records, marriage bonds, wills, all that stuff. It says description in Surrey County, Virginia. Also the Registry of Free Negroes in the late 18th and 19th century read. All right, so let's read some. We got Armstead Peters, a mulatto man, aged about 56 years, born free, of a yellowish complexion. James Williams, a mulatto man, pretty dark complexion. So here we go again with the mulatto, pretty dark complexion. So hopefully at this point, you guys know this mulatto word is, like a code word for Indian. Saying mulatto man, pretty dark complexion. So, I mean, from what we were told originally, that kind of doesn't make sense. But, as we've come through the information, we now know what this mulatto word means. Born of free parents, residents of this county, 35 years old. Next, we got Joseph Berg, son of Joseph and Nellie Berg, free mulatto persons and residents of this county, 20 years old, 5'5" high, bright complexion, short, thick hair, straight and well-made. Next, we got William Tan, a mulatto man and son of Jemima Tan, a white woman late of this county. He is a bright complexion, has straight black hair, pretty stout and straight made, age 21 years, last September. All right. Okay, so we're getting ready to get into some more surnames here, so listen up. Many baptized their children in Brunton and Middleton parishes, James City and Charles City counties between 1744 and 1767. They were the Always family, the Armfield family, the Ashby family, Banks family, Bartley, the Chavis, the Coopers, Flowers, the Freemans, the Gillets, the Grimes, the Jameson, Jones, Lewis, Macklin, Peters, Red Cross, Roberts, Rosarios, Tan, Wallace, and William families. So again, I know a lot of you have these people in your genealogy. All right. Who came from as far away as Southampton County. All right. So next we're going to have Esther Gowen. So we've seen a whole lot of different spellings of this name, right? So we got Esther Gowen, was among 9 free Negroes and mulattoes who came by boat to Norfolk County from Maryland in August of 1692. All right. Now it's going to say here, since so many free African Americans were light-skinned, many observers assumed they were the offspring of white slave owners who took advantage of their female slaves. Only one of more than 280 families in this history has proven to descend from a white slave owner. All right, so that's important information. All right. So Jean Lavina, the slave of John Nichols, was probably his mistress since he called her his Negro woman, and her children my 2 mulattoes, when he gave them their freedom and left them 350 acres by his November 11, 1696 Norfolk County will. All right. So next we're going to get into North Carolina. Jump back over here real quick. See what y'all talking about. Home of the brave. Salute, brother. Good to see you. All right, y'all. Let's get back into it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about North Carolina. So several free African Americans voted in the North Carolina General Assembly election in 1701. Jack Braveboy. All right, so here we go with another surname. So this particular surname I know ties to a lot of people in the Lumbee. You got some in the Catawbas. So a lot of Siouan tribes this Braveboy name is tied to. And there are definitely different spellings of this surname. It says that Jack Braveboy was living in Chowan County before July 17, 1716, when he was represented by the court. A Negro coming into this government with a woman and do live together as man and wife, it is ordered that the said Braveboy produce a sufficient certificate of their marriage. All right. And then in 1725, John Cotton was indicted for marrying a mulatto man to a white woman. And in 1726, the Reverend Mr. John Blacknell was fined £50 for joining together in matrimony Thomas Spencer and Martha Paul, a mulatto woman. All right. So we're gonna mention some more surnames here. So many of those who were free in Northampton County, Virginia, settled in Craven County, North Carolina. All right, so they were the Carters, the Copes, the Driggers, the Georges, the Johnston families. Okay, so there's some more surnames in some area where they live, so that's important for anybody who's stuck. All right, it says they can be traced directly back to their 17th century Virginia ancestors. Those in that early 18th century list of Northampton County, Virginia, tithables who immigrated to North Carolina were the Allen and Roberts families. Okay. All right, so let's get into another family. So the descendants of Nicholas and Bungie Manuel. So also with the Manuel family, Emanuel is also part of that same family. So Manuel, all the different spellings. Emanuel, all the different spellings. All right. So it goes on to say Negro slaves freed by the October 28, 1718, Elizabeth City County, Virginia will of Edward Myhill were in the Edgecombe, North Carolina militia in the 1750s. All right. And then here in brackets, this is Elizabeth City County deeds, will 1715, 1721. Clark, colonial soldiers of the South. So these are things you can look up to find out this information. Okay. And I will drop this link in the chat for you guys. Let me do that real quick. For anybody that wants to go back and do any research on anything that you've heard today. Let me paste that in there. Boom. All right, y'all, let's keep it rolling. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. All right. All right, let me get back to where I was at. I'm bad, y'all. Okay, here we go. It says James and Peter Black came to Craven County from Essex County, Virginia, where they had been freeborn. John Heath tried to sell them as slaves to William Hancock, but the Craven County Court intervened on their behalf on June 21st, 1745. All right. Another important piece of information we just read there. So next we got another surname that's going to pop up, and I actually know some Doves here in Ohio. It says Ma, Nell, Sue, Sow, and Will Dove. Negroes came to Craven County, North Carolina, from Maryland with Leonard Thomas, who was trying to keep them as his slaves in September 1749. But William Smith traveled to Maryland and proved their claim that they were freeborn. All right, so we got that. All right, so free African American immigrants were of sufficient number in 1723 that the General Assembly received complaints of great number of free Negroes, mulattoes, and other persons of mixed blood that have lately removed themselves into this government, and that several of them have intermarried with the white inhabitants of this province. Okay. It says, while some North Carolina residents were complaining about the immigration of free African Americans, their white neighbors in Granville, Halifax, Hartford, and Northampton counties welcomed them. Their neighbors may have been accustomed to living among free African Americans in Virginia. They may have moved from Virginia in company with them, or perhaps they were drawn together by the adversities of the frontier. Neighbor depended heavily upon neighbor, and whites may have been more concerned with hostile Indians and harsh living conditions than they were with their neighbor's color. All right. It says the slave population on the frontier was much lower than in the settled areas of Virginia, so the presence of free African Americans would not have posed a threat to most settlers. And several of these free African Americans owned slaves of their own. So we know this at this point. We know that this happened. It says, however, land ownership was more likely the social equalizer for them and their white neighbors. All right, so we're going to get into some more surnames here. So it says the McKinney family, originally from Isle of Wight County, Virginia, was one of the leading white families in the area around the Roanoke River. Barnaby McKinney, member of the General Assembly from Edgecombe County in 1735, was witness to Mary of the early Bass, Bunch, Chavis, and Gibson deeds. John McKinney called Canon Cumbo his friend when he mentioned him in his February 28, 1753, Edgecombe County will. All right, it says other leading white settlers who sold them land adjoining theirs and witnessed their deeds were Richard Washington, William and Thomas Bryant, Richard Pace, and William Whitehead. Arthur Williams, member of the General Assembly for Bertie County in 1735, and John Castello of James Castello, a member of the Assembly from Bertie County, had mixed-race common law wives, Elizabeth and Martha Butler. All right, y'all. So it goes on to say, on November 9, 1762, many of the leading residents of Halifax County petitioned the Assembly to repeal the discriminatory tax against free African Americans. And in May 1763, 54 of the leading citizens of Granville, Northampton, and Edgecombe counties made a similar petition. They described their free Negro and mulatto neighbors as persons of probity and good demeanor, cheerful, contribute towards the discharge of every public duty, and join them by law. All right. And then it says about 10 years later, a similar petition by 75 residents of Granville County included those of a few of the free African Americans of the county. All right, so here's some more surnames. So we got Benjamin, Edward, and Reuben Bass. We have William and Gabia Chavis. We got Lawrence Pettiford and Davy Mitchell, Negro. All right, let's keep it rolling. So it says by 1790, they represented 1.7% of the free population of North Carolina, concentrated in the counties of Northampton, Halifax, Bertie, Granville, Craven, Robeson, and Hertford, where they were about 5% of the free population. Then it says in these counties, most African American families were landowners, and several did exceptionally well. I'm going to read that again. In these counties, most African American families were landowners, and several did exceptionally well. All right. Hope everyone is doing well. See what we got here. Oh, home of the Braves. That's outstanding. I got Gibson as well. Okay. Nice. All right, y'all. So we got Edward Carter was the fourth largest Dobbs County landowner with 23,292 acres. So this is Edward Carter, Dobbs County, and he was the fourth largest landowner. So he had 23,000 acres. So anyone with this genealogy, that might be something you want to look into. It goes on to say he was head of a Dobbs County household of 8 other free, 1 white woman, and 20 slaves in 1790. So that might be somebody we need to look into a little more closely with that information we just read. It says the Bunch, Chavis. So Chavis and Gibson genealogy I do have as well. I was just saying that to Home of the Braves. Says families owned slaves and required over 1,000 acres of land on both sides of the Roanoke River. And the Chavis and Goen families acquired over 1,000 acres in Granville County. All right. So again, a lot of these family surnames are people that we do have in our families to this day. And you're seeing that, they had thousands, hundreds and thousands of acres of land. I mean, but they were supposed to be slaves. So William Chavis, a Negro listed in the October 8, 1754 muster roll of Colonel William Eaton's Granville County Regiment, owned over 1,000 acres of land, a lodging house frequented by whites, and 8 taxable slaves. All right, so again, we're going to keep hearing about people who are classified as Negro having slaves and owning businesses and land and all that. It says his son, Philip Chavis, also owned over 1,000 acres of land, traveled between Granville, Northampton, and Robeson counties, and lived for a while in Craven County, South Carolina. All right, so that's why I wanted to include South Carolina in all this, because, these people were going from, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, back and forth. So we all know about, the family migrations. All right. So it goes on to say that some members of the Gibson family moved to South Carolina in 1731, where a member of the Commons House of Assembly complained that several free colored men with their white wives had immigrated from Virginia. Governor Robert Johnson of South Carolina summoned Gideon Gibson and his family to explain their presence there, and after meeting him and his family reported. So this is what he has to say about them. I've had them before me in council, and upon examination find that they are not Negroes nor slaves, but free people. So what does that mean? That the father of them here is named Gideon Gibson, and his father was also free. I have been informed by a person who has lived in Virginia that this Gibson has lived there several years in good repute, and by his papers that he has produced before me that his transactions there have been very regular, that he has for several years paid taxes for 2 tracts of land and had several Negroes of his own. That he is a carpenter by trade and is come hither for the support of his family. All right, then here in the brackets it says box 2, bundle South Carolina minutes of House of Burgesses, parish transcripts, New York Historical Society by Jordan White over Black, 172. All right. So it says, it goes on to say, like the early settlers of North Carolina frontier, Governor Johnson, who was more concerned at Gibson's social class than their race. In mid-18th century North Carolina, we find wealthy mixed-race families counted in some years by tax assessors as mulatto, and in other years as white. All right. So Jeremiah and Henry Bunch, Bertie County slave owners, Jeremiah and Henry Bunch, Bertie County slave owners, were taxed in Jonathan Stanley's 1764 Bertie County list as free male mulattoes. All right. A lot of stuff going on back then, y'all. So, again, as we've gone over this information over the years, we kind of getting we kind of have gotten a clearer understanding of what a lot of this means. In 1764, But as White's and Stanley's 1765 Birdie list, and again as free mulattoes in 1766, Michael Goin was taxed in Granville County as white in 1754 and was called Michael Goin Mulatto in 1759. All right. So John Gibson, Gideon Gibson, and Gibson Chavis all married the daughters of prosperous white farmers. Some members of the Gibson, Chavis, Bunch, and Goin families became resolutely white after several generations. So, not true. All right, because a lot of us are descendants of these people. So this is absolutely not true. All right, so like I told you guys, dodge hijacks. All right, let me check the chat, see what y'all talking about. Yeah, definitely look into Henry Bunch. Exactly, Nighthawk. Exactly. Charles Johnson, peace. Good to have you here. Shin Clegg, peace. Good to have you here. All right, y'all. Let's keep it rolling. So it says, while some free African Americans owned slaves and were accepted in white society, others married slaves and socialized with slaves. So, when you kind of all look alike, I guess you can do that. Hester Anderson, one of those freed in 1712 in Norfolk County, was the common law wife of a slave. She was an ancestor of the artist family. So there's some of you guys out there that have that genealogy. Of Southampton County, Virginia, and several North Carolina counties, James Revel of Cumberland County entrusted his executor with the task of making application to the legislature for his wife's freedom. All right. Next, we got Abel Carter, was suspected of aiding a runaway slave. The 14th of November, 1778, issue of the North Carolina Gazette of New Bern advertised a reward for a Negro fellow named Smart. Tis supposed he is harbored about Smith River by one Abel Carter, a free Negro, as he has been seen several times. All right. However, the majority were small farmers owning a few hundred acres who married other free African Americans. Their marriages can be identified from colonial wills and tax lists. They were recorded in the county marriage bonds starting in the late 18th century. All right, keep it rolling. So it says they suffered under the discriminatory North Carolina tax law enacted in 1749. So you guys want to look up that and see what that's all about, which described taxables as, all and every white person, male of the age of 16 years and upwards, all Negroes, mulattoes, musty male or female, and all persons of mixed blood to the fourth generation of the age of 12 years and upwards, and all white persons intermarrying with any Negro, mulatto, or musty, or other person of mixed blood shall be deemed taxables. All right. So again, like I was just saying, North Carolina tax law enacted 1749. You want to look up that information. All right. So it goes on to say that thus free African Americans and Native American households can be identified by the taxation of their female family members over 12 years of age. Some light-skinned people would claim to be white to avoid this discriminatory tax, and they would be listed by the tax collector with the notation refuses to list his wife. All right. It was in the interest of the tax collector to classify those of doubtful ancestry as mulatto, since he received a portion of the tax. Interesting. However, those with some political and economic influence like the Bass. Wait a minute. Hang on, y'all. My page just crashed on me. My bad. I gotta get back to where I was at. My apologies. Let's see here. All right, we was in this North Carolina section. My bad, y'all. It page crashed on me. Let's see here. Yeah, we was pretty far into this too. Alright. We getting there, relatives. Just give me a minute here. Yep, we read that. Alright. I think we're back to where we were at. Okay. I think we're back. All right, y'all. Sorry about that. My apologies. It says, thus, free African American and Native American households can be identified by taxation of their female family members over 12 years of age. Some light-skinned people would claim to be white to avoid this discriminatory tax. And they would be listed by the tax collector with the notation refuses to list his wife. And it goes on to say it was in the interest of the tax collector to classify those of doubtful ancestry as mulatto, since he receives a portion of the tax. However, those with some political and economic influence, like the Bass and Bunch families, were often listed as white. All right. Now, in addition to the discriminatory tax, poor and orphaned African American children were bound out until the age of 21 by the county courts, just like their poor white counterparts. It says, note 12 in July 1733, the General Assembly received complaints from divers inhabitants that divers free people, Negroes, mulattoes residing in this province were bound out until they come to 31 years, contrary to the consent of the parties bound out. The said committee further report that they fear that divers persons will desert the settlement of those parts. All right. The General Assembly ruled that those illegally bound should be released, and the practice of binding out children to 31 years of age instead of 21 years was to cease. All right. So eventually they got rid of the Apprentice program. But as you guys know, like some jobs, you become an apprentice to, someone who's a master at it. So there we go with the slave master thing. All right. So the children were bound as apprentices in various crafts. Some apprentices were bound to learn the art, trade, and mystery of farming, which may simply have meant working as an unpaid field hand. Others were trained as coopers, blacksmiths, cordwainers, or other useful occupations. All right. So it's kind of weird that kind of thing is still going on to this day. If you guys are curious on what some of these jobs are, just simple Google search will tell you what they are. And then a lot of these same kind of jobs to this day, you can't just go right into them. You have to, do an apprenticeship to become, like a master plumber or whatever. It says the November 1774 Bertie County Court of Pleas and Quarter Sessions ordered Jemima Wiggins, 8 years old, and Mary Beth Wiggins, 10 years old, bastard mulattoes of Sarah Wiggins, bound to John Skinner. However, this order was reversed in the May 1775 court session when Edward Wiggins, the children's father, convinced the court of the said Skinner ill and deceitful behavior procuring said order. All right, so again, we have a time frame where people were going to court quite a bit. People who were said to supposed to have been slaves, winning court cases and having things overturned, and all kinds of stuff. All right, check back with you guys in the chat, see what's going on. American Ron, peace. Good to have you here. Thank you for being here. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in. Make sure you bang the like button while you're in here, please. Much appreciated. All right. So the courts bound out the children of many free African American women because they were the common law wives of slaves. But Doll Burnett argued against the binding of her daughter, Edith, in the May 28, 1777 Johnston County Court. And the court, taking the conduct, character, and circumstances of the said Doll Burnett into consideration and finding no just reason to apprehend that the said Edith would become a charge to this county, ordered her to be returned to the care of her said mother again. Now, it goes on to say, in some instances, the indenture laws virtually enslaved a person for life. Important what that just said. The indentured laws virtually enslaved a person for life. So there you go. George Cummins had the indenture of his white servant woman named Christian Finney extended by a year, and her child bound for 31 years by order of the December 7, 1736 Carteret County Court because she had a mulatto bastard child during her service. She may have been the common law wife of a slave, for she was charged with having another mulatto born July 10th, 1739, and another on December 20th, 1743. When she applied to the court for her freedom on June 9th, 1744, the court ruled that she serve another 5 months to pay for the cost of the court suit against her. When she again applied to her freedom 6 months later, the court ruled that on checking the record, she served another year since she had a mulatto child in the time of her servitude. All right. It goes on to say some unscrupulous masters treated their apprentices like slaves. Okay, so we just talked about that. On September 21st, 1742, David Lewis brought John Russell, a 6-year-old mixed-race boy, into Craven County Court, requesting that he be bound to him and promising to cause to be learned the said boy to read and write, a legible hand, and teach him, or cause to be taught the shoemaker's trade. All right. However, Lewis made a present of the said boy to his brother John Lewis of Chowan County, and his brother sold the boy to Captain Hughes of Suffolk County, Virginia. All right. So we got some crazy stuff going on there. So between 1759 and 1786, there were 16 African-American apprentices in Craven County who, at the completion of their indenture, had to petition the court for their freedom. The court ruled in favor of the petitioners in every case. All right. So next, we're going to talk about Caleb Locklear was bound apprentice to Stephen Cades, who assigned him to Francis Kennedy, who assigned him to James O'Neill, who assigned him to Thomas Hadley, who refused to release him from his indenture until ordered to do so by the July 27th, 1786 Cumberland County Court. All right. Next, we're going to talk about John Harris, a white Hyde County carpenter found guilty of begetting a bastard child by Mary Barrow, a white spinster who required by law to support her. However, in June 1756, when a child was about 2 months old, the court learned that the child was mixed race. Harris was compensated for his expense by binding the child, a mulatto named George, to him for 21 years. So his wife had sex with a copper-colored person, had a kid, so he bound out the kid to be paid back for her infidelity, I guess. All right. Robert West Sr. advertised in the North Carolina Gazette of New Bern on March 13, 1752, for Thomas Bowman, as if he were a runaway slave. Ran away from the subscribers on Roanoke River, a Negro fellow named Thomas Bowman, a very good blacksmith, near 6 feet high. He can read, write, and cipher. Whoever will apprehend him shall be paid 12 pistols, besides what the law allows. Then it goes on to say, almost 20 years later, Thomas Bowman was a taxable free mulatto in John Moore's household in the Bertie County tax list of 1771, 1772, and 1774. All right, so we're going to get into another surname. Okay. So a South Carolinian advertised in the North Carolina Central and Fayetteville Gazette on July 25th, 1795 for Nancy Oxendine, daughter of Charles Oxendine of Robeson County. $10 reward to deliver to the subscriber in Georgetown a musty servant woman named Nancy Oxendine. She is a stout wench of light complexion, about 30 years old. It is supposed she has been ills away by her brother and sister. The latter lives in Fayetteville. All right. It says, we also find cases where children were willingly bound by their parents to neighbors, friends, and relatives. Lovey Bass bound her illegitimate child Nathan to her neighbor, George Anderson. George Anderson was probably the boy's father. He devised his land to Nathan and his farm animals to Lovey Bass, but left his wife and children only a shilling each. All right, that's crazy. All right, so we're going to get into some other surnames here. Other apprentices were simply a way for a person to acknowledge responsibility for a child's support. Mary Bibby, a black taxable, had a base-born child named Fanny, who was bound out to Amy Ingram in Butte County on May 13, 1772. However, Mary had been living in the Ingram household for at least 10 years prior to this. She and a slave named Charles were black taxables in Jesse Ingram's household in Gideon Macon's 1761 list for Goodwin's district of Granville County. And she and Charles were taxable in the Ingram household in the 1771 Butte County tax list of William Person. Mary was Charles' common-law wife, according to a June 28, 1893 letter from a Bibby descendant, Narcissa Ratley, to her children. All right. It says some masters took the apprenticeships seriously. In Bertie County on September 26, 1768, Frederick James, 7 years old, natural son of Anne James, was bound as an apprentice to John Norwood. And about 50 years later, on February 25th, 1817, we find Frederick James able to write his own Bertie County will in good handwriting. All right. So it goes on to say, free African Americans were also in danger of having their children stolen and sold into slavery. In his Revolutionary War pension application on March 7th, 1835, Drury Tan declared the Southampton County, Virginia court that, so this is Drury Tan, his writing. He said he was stolen from his parents when a small boy by persons unknown to him, who were carrying him to sell him into slavery, and had gotten with him and other stolen property as far as the mountains on their way. That his parents made complaint to a Mr. Tanner Alford, who was then a magistrate in the county of Wake State of North Carolina, to get me back from those who had stolen me. And he did pursue the rogues and overtook them at the mountains and took me from them. All right, so that was Jury Tan talking about him being kidnapped and someone having to come, rescue him back and take him back to his people. All right, so we got an advertisement in the April 10th, 1770 issue of the North Carolina Gazette of New Bern, describes how the Driggers family was victimized in Craven County, North Carolina. So it says, broke into the house under the care of Ann Driggus, a free Negro woman, 2 men in disguise with marks on their faces and clubs in their hands, beat and wounded her terribly and carried away 4 of her children. All right. And John Scott, freeborn Negro, testifies in Berkeley County, South Carolina, on January 17, 1754, that 3 men, Joseph Devitt, William Devitt, and Zachariah Martin, entered by force the house of his daughter, Amy Hawley, and carried her off with her 6 children, and he thinks they are taking them north to sell as slaves. All right. Jump back in the chat, see how y'all doing. Peace, everybody out there. Appreciate everyone hanging in there, checking out the live stream. We're getting towards the end, so hang in there with me. All right, so he says one of the children was recovered in Orange County, North Carolina, where the county court appointed Thomas Chavis to return the child to South Carolina on March 12, 1754. Stealing free African Americans to sell them into slavery in another state was not a crime in North Carolina until 1779. However, free African Americans were afforded some protection under the law. In 1793, the murderer of John James of Northampton County was committed to jail, according to the March 20th, 1793 issue of the North Carolina Journal. Last night, Harris Allen, who was committed for the murder of John James, a free mulatto man of Northampton County, made his escape from the ghoul of this town. He is a remarkable tall man and had on a short round jacket. So many of the families in this history have at least one member who fought in a Revolutionary War, so that's also important. Several moved to South Carolina in the 18th century, and their names appear in the muster roll in the musters of the South Carolina militia in the 1759 Cherokee expedition. All right. And it says this service alongside whites established long-lasting friendships. William Bryan, a justice of the peace for Johnston County, testified in court for a Holiday Havecock in support of his application for a Revolutionary War pension on September 21st, 1834, explaining that in times of our Revolutionary War, free Negroes and mulattoes mustered in the ranks with white men. This affiant has frequently mustered in company with said free Negroes and mulattoes. That class of person were equally liable to draft and frequently volunteered in the public service. And H. Thomas Vanable wrote for him to the Commissioner of Pensions in Washington. The case of Holiday Havecock of North Carolina has been suspended merely because he was a free man of color. As we understand that several cases of this sort have been admitted, you will oblige us by having it admitted. Then we got Charles Robertson Key, a leading citizen of Northampton County, testified that he knew Drury Walden for more than 20 years, and that no man, not James Polk himself, is a better moral character. All right. So it goes on to say that many free African American families sold their land in the early 19th century and headed west or remained in North Carolina as poor farm laborers. This was probably the consequence of a combination of deteriorating economic conditions and the restrictive Free Negro Code laws. All right. So anybody wants to look up the Free Negro Code laws, it may talk about that here in just a second. So beginning in 1826 and continuing through the 1850s, North Carolina passed a series of restrictive laws termed the Free Negro Code. By John Hope Franklin, free African Americans lost the right to vote and were required to obtain a license to carry a gun. Tensions arising from Nat Turner's slave rebellion in nearby Southampton County, Virginia, played a major role in the passage of these laws. It is also possible that moves against the African American population helped to divert the attention of poor whites from their worsening economic conditions in the 1830s. All right, give me just a second, Rollies. All right. So it says, with the whole state literally up in arms over Nat Turner's rebellion, delegates to the General Assembly from Newbern called on the Assembly, setting forth the incompetency of free persons of color exercising the privilege of voting. Edmund B. Freeman, editor of the Roanoke Advocate, a Halifax County weekly, boldly came to their support in January 5th, 1832 issue, saying, "It cannot be denied that free Negroes, taken in the mass, are dissolute and abandoned. Yet there are some individuals among them sober, industrious, and intelligent. Many are good citizens, and that they are sometimes good voters, we have the best proofs. It says, we do think that too much prejudice is excited against this class of our population. But at the same time, there is a class of white-skinned citizens, equally low and abandoned, whose absence should be little regretted." All right. If his attitude towards free African Americans was typical of white Halifax County residents, this would help to explain why free African Americans made up over 18% of the free population of the county in 1810. The editor's backhand compliment certainly compares well to the sentiments of Robeson County residents. The county of Robeson is cursed with a free colored population that migrated originally from the districts round about the Roanoke and Neuse River. They are generally indolent, roguish, improvident, and dissipated. Or, a northern paper quoted in the January 5th, 1832 issue of the Roanoke Advocate, complaining about the evils arising from the immigration of free blacks from other states into Pennsylvania, overrun by an influx of ignorant, indolent, and depraved population, most dangerous to the peace, rights, and liberties of our citizens. All right, let's keep them moving. So it goes on to say that John Hope Franklin recorded a famous case in which Elijah Newsom of Cumberland County was prosecuted for carrying his gun in the court. However, Halifax County and Robinson County appear to have granted gun licenses freely. These licenses were recorded in the county court records from 1841 through 1846. All right, let's keep it moving. It says many of those who left the state were enumerated in the 1840-1860 census of Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and Michigan. It goes on to say some went to Canada and a few to Haiti and Liberia. By 1857, when Henry Chavis immigrated to Liberia, Excuse me, y'all. He immigrated to Liberia. Life for free African Americans in North Carolina must have been truly oppressive. Let me grab some water real quick, y'all. All right. All right, Joe. Sorry about that. It says a letter written for him to his friend Dr. Ellis Malone of Lewisburg in Franklin County, describing Liberia sounds like that of a recently liberated slave. So this is Henry Chavis writing about what Liberia is like. He says, "This land of freedom, a nation of free and happy children of a hitherto downcast and oppressed race, I now begin to enjoy life as a man should do. Did my colored friends only know or could have seen what I already have seen, they would not hesitate a moment to come to this glorious country." All right. So we all know about, them moving people to Liberia. It says by 1870, many of those who remained behind were living in virtually the same conditions as the freed slaves. In the 1870 census for Northampton County, North Carolina, the most common occupation listed for those who were freed before 1800 was farm laborer. The same occupation as the former slaves. Some married former slaves, and by the 20th century, they had no idea their ancestors had been freed. All right. So it says some of the lighter skinned descendants of these families formed their own distinct communities, which have been the subject of anthropological research. Those in Robeson County are called Lumbee Indians. In Halifax and Warren County, Haliwasaponi. In South Carolina, Brass Ankles and Turks. In Tennessee and Kentucky, the Melungeons and Portuguese. And in Ohio, Carmel Indians. All right, so he says several fantastic theories on their origin have been suggested. One is that they were from Raleigh's lost colony at Roanoke, and another that they were an amalgamation of the Siouan-speaking tribes in North Carolina and South Carolina. All right. So it goes on to say that documents from a court case held in Johnson County, Tennessee, in 1858 provided a detailed description of one such family. They illustrate the extent to which the family was accepted by the white community and the extent to which the family history was already clouded by myths in 1858. So Joshua Perkins, born about 1732 in Accomack County, Virginia, was the mulatto son of a white woman. He owned land in Robinson County, North Carolina in 1761, moved to Liberty County, South Carolina, and in 1785 moved to what later became Washington County, Tennessee. Then it says along the way, succeeding generations of his family married light-skinned or white people. They owned a ferry, racehorses, and an iron ore mine, ran a local schoolhouse, and were election officials. However, conditions had changed drastically just prior to the Civil War in 1858, when Jacob F. Perkins, great-grandson of Joshua Perkins, brought an unsuccessful suit against one of his neighbors in the circuit court of Johnson County for slander because he called him a free Negro. All right, keep it moving. So it goes on to say that more than 50 witnesses made depositions or testified at the trial. Many of the deponents had known 3 generations of the family in North Carolina, South Carolina, or Tennessee. 16 of 22 elderly witnesses who had actually seen Joshua Perkins testified that he was a Negro, describing him as a dark-skinned man with sheep's wool and flat nose, a black man, hair nappy, some called Jacob a Portuguese. Ooh, y'all see that? And some a Negro. Interesting. All right, so new old Jock or Joshua in North Carolina on PD, right? Black or nearly so, hair kinky, like a common Negro. All right, keep it moving, dropping some gems. It says, however, 18 witnesses for Perkins testified that Joshua Perkins was something other than Negro, Portuguese or Indian. They said little about his physical characteristics and those of his descendants. Instead, they argued that he could not have been a Negro and been so totally accepted by his community. Dark-skinned man, resembling an Indian more than a Negro, he was generally called a Portuguese, living well, kept company with everybody, kept racehorses, and John Watson rode them. Mixed-blooded and not white, his wife fair-skinned. They had the same privileges. Hair bushy and long, not kinky, associated with white people, associated with the most respectable persons. Some would call them Negroes and some Portuguese. He was known of the Portuguese race. 4 of his sons served in the Revolution. Jacob and George drafted against Indians. They came from and kept a ferry in South Carolina. They kept company with decent white people and had many visitors. I taught school at Perkins Schoolhouse. They were Portuguese, associated white peoples, clerked at elections and voted and had all privileges. Okay. Now it goes on to say that some who testified in favor of the Perkins family had never seen Joshua Perkins and seemed to be genuinely confused about the family's ancestry. I was well acquainted with Jacob Perkins, a second-generation Perkins, a yellow man, said to be Portuguese. They do not look like Negroes. I have been about his house a great deal and nursed for his wife. She was a little yellow and called the same race, had blue eyes and black hair. All right. So it goes on to say one of the deponents, 77-year-old Daniel Stout, explained very simply how people of African descent could have been treated well by their white neighbors. Never heard him called a Negro. People of those days said nothing about such things. All right, y'all. So that basically is the end of the reading there. Like I said, I did that video, the original video for this probably about 1.5 years ago. I got about 6,000 views on it, and I went back and looked at it, and it was kind of funny because it was in my early days of doing live streams, so I was a little hyped up. But it is what it is. So towards the end of this, they have the footnotes. So these would be the sources where a lot of this comes from. I wanted to read through some of this because they have a lot of surnames in here. So I just want to read these to you guys. So if you have these surnames, definitely dig in. So I want to start here with note 2. It says female free African Americans were made tithable in 1668, but the 1705 law did not include them. And then it goes on to say Norfolk County officials did not enforce the 1723 amendment until 1735, 1736, when female members of the Anderson, Archer, Bass, Hall, Manley, and Price families were taxed. Okay, so that's when it first started. It says Surrey County probably did not enforce the 1723 amendment until November 21st, 1758, when the Surrey County Court presented 13 free African Americans for not listing their wives as tithables. All right, so here's some more surnames. They were the Banks, the Barkley, Barlow, Charity, the Bricks, Ely, Peters, Simon, Tan, Walden, and Wilson families. Okay. All right, so now we got a pretty big list of surnames here that I'm gonna read through that are included with this these other families. So we got Allen, Armstrong, Arnold, Ashby, Balltrip, Barnett, Beckett, Bibbins, Bell, Barry, Boone, Boyd, Bryant, Bug, Bundy, Butler, Cassidy, Clark, Collins, Copes, Cousins, Davenport, Day, Dempsey, Donovan, Driver, Dunstan, Elliott, Ellis, Flood, Flora, Francis, Gallimore, Gregory, Hammond, Harrison, Hobson, Hogg, Holt, Howe, Kent, Lewis, Ligon, Lucas, Lynch, Maggie, Manley, Mills, Morris, Murray, Oakey, Oxendine, Perkins, Redmond, Robinson, Sample, Simmons, Sorrell, Simons, Tate, Tony, Webb, Williams, Wilson, and Wood families. All right. See if we got any more names in here we can read off. All right. So we also have Anderson, Archer, Black, Bowser, Kane, Carter, Charity, Clark, Cuffy, Cumbo, Dove, Driggers, Drury, George, Gibbs, Gowen, Greenwich, Harmon, Harris, Jacobs, Jeffries, Johnson, Kersey, Levener, Lytle, Manuel, Matthews, Mangum, Moore, Mordick, Newton, Nickens, Payne, Roberts, Cisco, and Stringer families. All right. See if we got any more down here. Let's see. All right. So one quick thing it does say now here says another member of his family, Hiram Revels, first African-American to be elected to the U.S. Senate. He was born in Fayetteville, Cumberland County, North Carolina, 1822. All right. And let's see here. Just checking through this. All right. Okay, so here it says the November 1841 Robeson County Court issues licenses using the form whereas a colored man residing in this country by name doth sustain a good moral character. Therefore, it is adjudged that the said be permitted to bear firearms, and use the same as any other good citizen of the community. All right, so they got some names listed here. David Oxendine, Aaron Oxendine, Ishmael Roberts, David Scott, Alexander Oxendine, William Goings, Harry Sampson, Elthred Roberts, Willis Roberts, Nelson Roberts, Levy Locklear, John Blanks, Hector Locklear, George Morgan, Abraham Jones. All right. See if there's anything else. Okay. So I think that will cover that particular reading. Let me jump back into the chat. All right. So hopefully you guys got a lot of different surnames that pulled up in there. And we did get some mention about some Indian tribes. So that was kind of nice. Sleepy Jack, peace. So let me go through here and say what's up to everybody real quick, because I know we had a lot of people come in that I may have missed. Give me 1 second, guys. All right. Go back to the beginning here. Blazer 71, peace. Appreciate you being here. Queen Ottawa, honor sis. Joey Sylvie, peace, brother. Radames Prince, salute, relative. Appreciate you. Nighthawk, salute, relative. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Yashia O'Hare, OCO. Sean P, the Aborigine, peace, fam. Good to see you. Chief Kokomo, peace. Good to see you. Marquise Smith, appreciate you being here. Thank you. My brother Fred 9455, peace, bro. David Taylor, peace, fam. Good to see you. Nasir Clark, peace, peace. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Crystal Leggett, peace, sis. Thank you for being here. Chickahominy Roots, peace, sis. Thank you for being here as well. Charlene Alston, peace, sis. Thank you for being here. Tony Furlow, peace, brother. Good to see you. Rod Jeweler, Grand Rising to you, my brother. Thank you for being here. Trisha, thank you for being here as well. Brandon Tate, peace. Yeah, we just went over the Tate family history. Awesome family history. We got, let's see who else I'm missing here. Wilmore Reed, peace, brother. Good to have you back in. R. Rand, peace, fam. Good to see you. See who else we got. Arthur Gray, appreciate you being here, my brother. Thank you. Belinda Malone, as always, peace to you. Thank you. Golden Moon, peace. Good to have you here. Coach B, salute to you. Thank you for being here. Pamela, eyes wide and clear, peace, sis. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Brave Cold Water, Alito, thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see who else I'm missing. Oh, my brother Wanagi and Petawaste to you, my brother. Thank you for being here. Home of the Braves, salute to you, brother. Thank you for coming in as well. Charles Johnson, peace to you. Let's see who else we got. We got Shin Clegg. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Sherlock Holmes, what's good? Thank you for being here. American Ron, peace to you. Appreciate you. See who else I'm missing. Johannes, peace to you. Appreciate you being here. And I'm glad to see everybody writing in the chat about their genealogy. That's awesome. I'm glad that we're there. Miss Neetha, much honor to you, sis. Thank you for being here. Let's see who else I got. Sleepy Jack, peace to you. Mount Soul, peace to you. Appreciate you being here. Let's see who else. Red Wolf, salute. Mr. Freeman Lamar, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for being here. Gerald Mitchell, peace. Brother Lawrence, appreciate you being here. Powhatan 9 Man, Alito. And I believe we have Jim Mohawk. All right, y'all. So I appreciate y'all giving me your time today, coming in here to check me out. Again, if anyone has any questions or anything you need to reach out to me for, the email address should be at the top. I pinned it to the chat, so you guys could email me with whatever questions you got. So yeah, Diaspora L, peace to you. Appreciate you coming in. Yeah, that's a good point, Wanagi. Let me pin your comment real quick. So yeah, Wanagi's absolutely right. A lot of these tribes have a lot of the same surnames. So you are going to see them over and over in these tribes. So like Wanagi is saying as well, dates, locations, that's definitely important. Philip Sanders, peace. Appreciate you being here. So, I mean, if you guys even go and look at some of the Algonquin and Iroquois tribes, which the Cherokee, I believe, are Iroquois. You are going to see some of your surnames there. You're going to see these surnames with the Algonquin tribes, the Siouan tribes, probably even in the Muskogee tribes as well. David Corey, peace, brother. Good to see you. Honors. So yeah, I just, again, just wanted to remaster this video. I appreciate you guys coming in and listening. And I think we're going to go ahead and shut it down now. But one love to you all. Yeah, one love to you all. I appreciate all you guys coming through. Definitely. So I'll probably be dropping another video later this week, probably like Thursday. But thank you. Oh, Chickahominy Roots, I appreciate what you sent to me as well, sis. I haven't had a chance to thank you for that, but thank you. Appreciate it. All right, y'all. So I guess we are going to get on up out of here. Let me stop the music real quick. All right, y'all. So everybody, just keep up on your studies. Keep digging in your genealogy. We are getting there. So, 2021, get that grind in. All right. I love you all. And we are out of here. Peace. Relatives. And BY, Hushka. Opemiha. Hijack again. Relatives. They had no idea their ancestors were Perkins.